All right, guys, Gary from Volumetone. I hope that you're not only live with us, but if you're viewing this after hours, this is a great presentation that Dale Sandberg put together for us. He said, hey, Gary, after the last QSC training we did, you had a great idea, and it was more or less a start to finish job segment. This is really going to get specific. We talked about zoning. We talked about different idiosyncrasies that many regions might have. Don't know how much you're going to cover on that, but I just thought it was a really good focus on what these dealers might go through when they're bidding and going through the jobs and, you know, obviously implementing. So I'm Gary from Volumetone. I represent all of the Snap AV local distributors, and that's MRI, that's AllNet, that is Volumetone, and Custom Plus. So welcome, you guys. Good to see you guys. We do this weekly, and judging from your interaction here, we can always build on that. Like I said, this is QSC number 2 with us, and we really appreciate not only Dale, but Ross Hornbuckle's support for the dealers. Nation, we're coming to you from Los Angeles. Ross, you're our, Ross is laughing at me right now, but he's like, hey man, don't overextend me, man. No, the service levels that you guys provide is second to none. And I know this because in the commercial segment, you know, the guys need help. They need design overview. And that's exactly what you guys have always provided, not only from QSC, but from Audio Gear. So again, you guys are going to get email from me 4 o'clock today. I appreciate any questions coming back. I'll get it to Dale and Rob. Have a good, strong hour. Looking forward to this segment here. Ross is our regional for Audio Gear, like I said, in Southern California. Everybody's contact information will be on the email. And of course, Dale Sandberg coming from Salt Lake City. I really appreciate you guys putting this together for us. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dale. Let's have a good one, guys. Thank you, man.
Thank you, guys. So we've got a lot of material. I'm just going to jump right into my sharing my screen, and let me make sure I'm getting the right thing here. This one, share. Okay. You should be able to see my screen. And as Gary said, my name's Dale Sandberg from QSC, and today we are going to design a small retail space. I thought it might be a little bit more interesting and informative to kind of go through the design process. So, and I need to click in order to move screens. There we go. So, and the products we'll be covering today from QSC are premium business music solutions. But before we actually, you know, get into the products themselves, we'll go kind of through the design process. As part of this family, this product family, we've got a DSP device, a zone mixer or processor. We've got some amplifiers. We've got some loudspeakers. You know, obviously we can't do a live demo of the loudspeakers, but I'll be talking about them as part of the system. When we are creating this system, when we're creating this retail experience, I'm going to be talking about 2 different tools in particular, or showing you 2 different software tools. One is Ease Address, which allows us to create the loudspeaker layout. And the other one is the MP install software, and this is from QSC, controlling our MP NPM zone mixer or processor. When I work on business music systems, I generally go through 6 different steps. A couple of them are iterative, meaning you got to kind of go through and do it again and again. But the first and probably the most important is determining customer expectations, finding out exactly what they want. Second step's going to be, you know, figuring out the space, creating zones in that space, choosing your loudspeakers, and then, you know, laying those speakers out. We'll be choosing amps as part of that 4th step. And then programming the system processor. This is one of the steps that often is iterative. I'll start, I'll make some changes, especially if I go into my commissioning installation process, make some more changes, go back into, doing some additional programming. But these are the steps we're going to go through. And so I'm just going to hop right into them. So here's our challenge for the day. We have a PacSun retail space. This is kind of a mid-energy retail store. Open ceiling concept, except in the back areas where they're going to have dressing rooms. There's going to be an office and a break room, and then bathrooms. They do want some wall control of the system. So these are some of the things you've got to think about as you're designing the space, is making sure you know what the owner and management want for this space. If we look at the actual floor plan of the system, here we see, again, it's mid-energy background music. It's not going to be super loud like an American Eagle or something like that, or Hot Topic, but it's going to be an obviously noticeable as you walk into the store. There's 4 zones. There's the sales floor, which will be kind of here in the that's the main area. You've got some dressing rooms in the upper right-hand corner. There's an office and break room, and then you've got a single bathroom right here. And so these are the 4 zones. And if we look at them independently, we see here's our primary sales floor, and it is an open ceiling. It's 12 feet, or that's going to be our trim height. It's probably a 16-foot lid, but 12 feet is where we're going to hang the speakers. And you can see the space. It's 43 by 50 feet there. The dressing rooms. So these are 2 dressing rooms. We've got a total of 15 feet by 12 feet. And because of privacy, they actually have a sheetrock ceiling. Used to be you sometimes get ceiling tiles, but sometimes they found that people would put cameras and stuff. So now it's generally a sheetrock ceiling is what you're going to find in above dressing rooms. The break room and office, again, that's a 10-foot ceiling height, and this could be ceiling tile or it could be sheetrock. It probably doesn't matter too much. And then again in the bathroom, the sheetrock ceiling. So those are our 4 zones. Now, as we get into choosing the loudspeakers, there's a number of considerations, things that we need to make sure that we understand and think about. Probably the most important ones are the ambient noise level and the volume level that they want to play at. But these other elements are important too, right? Ceiling height, coverage density, how many speakers they want to have, speaker type. Sometimes, like if you're in a bar setting, they may have overhead speakers, or they may have surface mount speakers on the wall, that kind of thing. And then your loading, whether it's a 70-volt system or whether it's 8-ohm system. In regards to the ambient noise and volume level, there's this really will determine a lot about your loudspeakers. And so what you have is, in this particular scenario, we've got this PacSun, it's in a mall, and so the ambient noise in a mall is somewhere between 60 and 70 dB usually. I highly recommend, if you don't already have, and I'm sure most of you do, but if you don't already have an app on your phone that measures SPL level, I highly recommend you get one, because it can really help out and help you understand and get a feel for what what is 60 dB versus 80 dB. When you go to once they start having concerts again, and you go to a concert, what 105 to 110 dB is. And so this is really good to know. So like I said, our PacSun is located in a mall. So the ambient noise is probably 60 to 70 dB, somewhere in there. And that's the noise that's coming off of the mall. And in the store, maybe, you've got some background, some conversation. And because this is a mid-level audio system, we want to be able to be just, you know, a little bit, maybe 6 dB above the, you know, above the ambient noise. And so we're probably going to be in the mid 70s. You know, let's say your ambient noise is 65 dB, you add 6 dB or 8 dB, and now you're in your mid 70s there. So that's kind of the range that we're shooting for. Things, other things to consider, choosing the loudspeakers. In this particular case, I'm going to utilize the AD series from QSC. The AD stands for Acoustic Design, and they are our premium loudspeakers. And one of the nice things is they're all voiced to sound very similar. So whether you're using a 4-inch, a 6-inch, or an 8-inch, they all have very much a family sound to them. Which is really nice. You can hang pendants and they'll sound very similar to your surface mount, and they'll sound similar to the ceiling loudspeakers. We also do have low profile or shallow can ceiling speakers for, you know, when you run into an obstruction or have some sort of issue. And so in my particular zones, if you remember the sales floor was an open ceiling, I'm going to go with the pendant speakers. This 6-inch pendant is a fantastic sounding loudspeaker, and it's so that's what I'm going to choose for the sales floor. For the dressing room, break room, and bathroom, I'm just going to go with ceiling speakers, and you know, it just makes it easy, and I know they're all going to sound the same and sound really good. So getting back to our speaker layout now, we're already into step 4, designing the speaker layout. I'm going to jump into ease address. Now, ease address, let me see if I can share, new share, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, and ease address.
And Dale, I'll just add while you're pulling that up. So Ease is an independent company from QSC, but QSC participates by making our loudspeaker profiles available to be used in this third-party software. So there's a nice symbiotic relationship there where you can get accurate results as to what how a QSC loudspeaker will behave in a space by using this software. So it is available for download on the QSC website, but just know that Ease is a product of another company that we provide our information to.
That's exactly right. Yes, you can download Ease Address from the QSC website, and when you do so, it comes loaded with all the QSC loudspeaker tuning, not tunings, but the loudspeaker profiles, and so how that speaker will sound in these spaces. Now, Ease, I'll be honest, Ease is a little bit cumbersome to use. It provides a lot of power, it gives you a lot of information, but it can be a little bit clunky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to you know, start, this is a brand new design. I just opened this design file. I'm going to load an image of my store. And when I load that image, I need to set a kind of a baseline. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, oh, where are you? I'm going to grab this and pull it in. I'm actually going to set it right. And it's very fussy. So right about there. Yep, that's good. And now for my B. And I'm going to put it right there. Good. And now I know this distance is 50 feet because it's right there in the floor plan, 50 feet. So I type in 50 and I hit OK. And now it pulls that into my design. So that allows me now to get started. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make room number 1. Now this is going to be my sales floor. Other things that I can set while I'm talking about, well, you know, these are just kind of general settings. So the room height, or where we're going to trim our loudspeakers, is 12 feet. The ear height, so this is the, you know, where ears are, and people are standing, so this is just going to be shy of 6 feet, 5.5 feet, a little bit more than that. And I'm going to set my first zone up for 70 volt speakers. And now I can grab these points and start making adjustments. So here is this. Grab this point. Here is, and again, like I said, ease is a little bit cumbersome, but you know, we'll get through it. And now I'm going to move that, grab them, boom, and grab this. And it just makes it easy if we make it nice and square. So that's my sales floor. And, you know, I can look over here and see, you know, it came in 6 feet, and we're just shy of 50 feet there, which is fine. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click this point and set as room origin. So now as I lay my speakers out, this is my 0 point, which is, you know, really, really helpful. Okay, to lay my speakers out, I go to auto range. And here what I'm going to do, now the nice thing is that I've already, because I've used this a few times before, I've already pre-selected the ADP, but you can see that I've got a whole bunch of, here's the whole list of QSC loudspeakers right there. I'm actually going to set these at a 30 watt tap setting. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my distance. This is the distance between, let me go in so I can see more of that room. Well, I'm not going to worry about zooming right now. What I find is because these are set at 12 feet high, generally I start there for my my distance between the loudspeakers. So I'm going to go 12 and see what it gives me. So 12 gives me, if I set my distance between them at 12, it gives me actually 12 speakers. There we go. I want to, that's what I want to do. Okay. There we go. So actually, oh, that's 15 speakers. Okay, that might be a bit much. So let's go to 13 and see what we want. Gives me 9 speakers. That's probably more appropriate. This also down here shows me a distribution graph. Now with 70 volt speakers, the thing to remember is that this distribution, this is SPL, this is the projected output level. And remember we said that we wanted to be somewhere with our background music, somewhere in the neighborhood of the mid 70s. Well, with the 70 volt system, the thing to remember is that this level here that it's showing is that this is the maximum level at 70 volts. So when I'm driving that system as loud as it's going to get and it's reaching 70 volts RMS, then you're going to have, you know, on the order of 93, 94 dB in this system. And if I show the mapping, you'll see how that coverage is. Obviously, right underneath the speaker is going to be 97. As you get to the outside edges, it's going to be down in the mid 80s somewhere. Now, I think what I want to do is I'm going to select some speakers and maybe move them. So now
Dale, can we give just some rough references? You know, because this is the most common question. As these loudspeakers start to equal dollars, the more or less we use, and the more amplifiers we need, and often the first time the client wants to reduce the budget,
right?
You know, the difference between having a distribution that's relatively tight, where most of the space is within, you know, 3 or 4 dB, and then as you start subtracting loudspeakers, then obviously, you know, we're using less sound sources to cover the space.
Right.
Maybe our difference between loudspeakers starts to get in the 6 to 8 dB. What is the real world effect of using less loudspeakers to cover the same square footage?
Well, actually, we can simulate that here really quickly. It's a great question, Ross, and it really does. It makes a big difference. If I choose, um, it's a great question, so I do want to address it. I'm going to set my distance between these to something like 15. And okay, so it's still showing me that. It's still showing me 9 speakers. The reason I like to turn mapping off is it takes a while sometimes for it to calculate. So I'm going to turn my mapping off, and let's go to maybe 18. And it might just give me still, okay. Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to 20. And now I'm back to 1 speaker. Thank you very much. That's not very useful.
I think you got an extra.
Oh, I had 200. Well, that explains it.
We'll do the whole shopping mall.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull some speakers out just to illustrate that, because I can select and delete those speakers, and then I can grab these speakers right here, and I'll move them to the middle ish, and then from there I can just kind of move them out. And so now I've got 4 speakers instead of 9, and you can see my distribution graph below. Now turn my mapping back on, and you can see that now the most of the store here is actually going to be in the mid 80s at the loudest level. So I basically dropped about 10 dB in overall signal level. And that's just the nature of loudspeakers, right? They operate and I'm trying to remember the name of the law, the inverse square law, that's it. And so, you know, the closer you are, it has to do with the square of the difference. So obviously you can see that that pattern here with the 4 loudspeakers. If I'm within, you know, 5 or 6 feet of those loudspeakers, I hear great. I hear in the mid 90s, right, at its loudest level. But out here in the general sales floor area, it's actually, you know, relatively low level. And so changing the number of loudspeakers will affect you know, that'll have the biggest effect on your bottom line, on the cost of the system and all of that. And so it was a really good question you asked, Ross. That's one of the nice things about using this tool, Ease Address, is it can really show you what the effect is. So now if I go ahead.
This is great to submit, you know, to your client as sort of a proof of concept to say, you know, yes, will 4 loudspeakers, quote unquote, work? You know, certainly you could only use 4, but as you walk from the shoe department to the, you know, sweatpants or whatever, it's going to feel like somebody's got a volume knob turning the system twice as loud or turning it down by half, simply because that's the difference of level as you're in between the loudspeakers. Right. Versus when you have a more uniform coverage, your customers are not going to perceive a difference in the volume of the background music. And our brains really like consistency, which allows us not to focus on it necessarily. When we hear changes in volume, our brains tend to identify that.
Yeah.
So
it calls attention to it, right? Yeah, exactly. Our brain will focus on the, wow, I was listening and now I don't hear as much sound. And so, yeah, if you're trying to keep it seamless, you know, obviously more speakers will do that for you. And so here we see, I'm back to my 9 loudspeakers, and we can see that, of course, when you're directly under the speaker, it's going to be louder, but you can see now in the middle of the store, you still get decent coverage here. And who cares what's happening at these wall boundaries, right? In fact, when you hit those boundaries, sometimes you'll actually get a reflection, and so it will reinforce that speaker a little bit more than you see here. You see the average level in the store is roughly 92 dB SPL. And again, remember, that's when the system is at 70 volts. It's when it's at its max. And so when you're running at moderate levels or mid to high level, Now we're going to be in the mid to low 70s, which is perfectly where we wanted to be in this system. So, I've laid these speakers out. One thing I might want to do here is I might click on that particular loudspeaker, and I might edit the properties of that loudspeaker. I'm going to change the tap setting on that because that's right over the cache and wrap. And so I want to lower the volume level on that particular loudspeaker. So when you're talking with the sales personnel, it's not distracting. And so you can see, I mean, there's some things I can do here in this system. So that was our first floor. We would go back, and this is like a cooking show, right? Using ease takes some time. And so I'm going to show you, yes, here's the ingredients. And in just a minute, I'm going to pull out the finished cake. But if I needed to, I can go and I'm going to create
and this sort of homework, if we want to think of it this way, for any customers out there, when you reach out to us at QSC for design assistance, this is something that myself in Southern California and my counterparts around the country would be happy to work with you on, to provide this as the foundation for what is ultimately a quote to the client.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, Ross. So what I'm going to do is I went back out to my project. I'm going to right click in the window and I can start a new room. And so I would start a new room, and it's going to be dressing rooms, right? And so here I can look at that background and see it mostly. And so I can lay these rooms out and boom. Okay, so that's room number 2. Now, what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to zoom in on that, and so zoom. Oh, come on, show me that background. Yeah, so obviously you can see that it wasn't perfectly square, but that's okay. What it shows me is actually one speaker probably would cover it, but I've got 2 dressing rooms, so I'm just going to add another loudspeaker. In this particular case, I'm just going to insert. I can just right click here, add a loudspeaker. And so here I'm going to move this loudspeaker here, and I'm going to move this loudspeaker there, and I'm going to edit those properties. So I right click on that, edit loudspeaker properties, and I can go through this, right? Here's my list of speakers. And in this case, I'm going to use an ADC 6T. Click OK, and do the same thing, edit loudspeaker. And so I can go through and do all of this. So ADC 6T, boom. Now these are looking a little bit hot. Maybe I should actually change those tap settings to 30 watts in that room. And same thing here. And so you can see how I can build this system. Okay, so that is that's kind of using the basics of ease. There's more to this. We actually have a webinar about using ease, and Trip Matthews goes through the whole using the software, and he's much better at it than I am. But I can. No, I'm not going to save any changes. So here's I'm pulling the cake out of the oven, and there we go. Here's our sales floor, dressing rooms, break room, and bathroom. So this is really nice. Ease can generate all this information. Another thing that it will generate is if I go to my file, I can create a print version, and then this is something I can give to the customer. So really, really useful. And there's some additional information that it will give me in that print version. So let me bounce back into my presentation, which I think is this one. There we go. So we just went to ease address, and now I should be able to. So this is what we got coming out of E's address. We've got our sales floor. We've got 9 speakers in here. You can see that that center speaker, I've lowered that tap setting so it's not as loud over that the cashier there. I've got the dressing rooms. I've got the back room. I lowered the tap settings on those as well, and the bathroom. So everything, I've set my loudspeakers in here, and you know, pretty much designed my speaker layout. Now, these are some of the print materials that will come out of E's address, and it's really, really useful. As part of that, it gives me the amount of power for each of those zones, and that's a really, really nice thing to know. In fact, if I think on this next page, yeah. So this is the sales floor area, and I can see that there's my power consumption right there, 248 watts. And so, and then it gives me, you know, room layout, and it'll tell me how many, you know, where the X and Y coordinates of those loudspeakers are and so forth. I think I cut that image off, but, and so that gives me the total wattage. Once we know the wattage necessary, and remember, that's at maximum, that's at, you know, if the system's at its fullest, at its loudest output. So that's at 70 volts, it would need 248 watts. So now I'm going to hop really quick in and talk about some of our new amplifiers. The MPA series amplifiers have a really powerful tool in them called FlexAmp. And basically it allows me to share power for every pair of channels. So channels 1 and 2, I've got a total of 400 watts. Each channel can deliver up to 400 watts. So if I'm using the 248, maybe 250 watts here for channel 1 for my sales floor, that means I've got up to 150 watts available for channel 2. Channels 3 and 4, a different 400 watt power supply. So that means, again, I can share that power across those outputs. So it gives me a really nice way to have some flexibility in how I utilize my amplifier outputs. The entire MPA series is all 1RU. So I've got a 2-channel, 4-channel, and 8-channel version. This happens to be the 4-channel version. When I'm setting that system up, each channel allows me to select my loading. So A and B dip switches allow me to choose 100 volts, 70 volts, 8 ohms, or 4 ohms. And just by setting those dip switch settings. So if this was an 8 ohm system, A would be down, B would be up. Because this is a 70 volt system for zone 1, for channel 1, A is up and B is down. I've also got a dedicated high pass filter at 80 hertz. I would not engage that, so that actually should be down. It looks like there may be some, are there some questions there? Should we dig into questions before I move on?
No, we're troubleshooting some technical difficulties, but
okay, got it.
I've still got your audio, and I think we're good there. But
okay,
that's a good reminder, just to say if anybody does have any questions, please ask at any time. We're happy to go off on a tangent.
Yep. So yeah, the MPA, really flexible amplifiers, and you can see I can adjust all these settings on the rear panel. The front panel's totally clean. Your end customer is not gonna see any of these knobs or settings, and so you'll be able to keep hopefully keep them out of the back of the rack. So now we get into programming. We've got our 4 zones, and we've got our various input signals and content that's coming from those, and you know, we know what we want to do for each of those zones. So let me say just a couple of words about the MPM. This is our newest DSP processor, and if you're familiar with QSC, you know, we've obviously made amplifiers for more than 50 years. We've been making loudspeakers actually for about 25 years. And probably in the last 10 years, we've developed a number of different DSP processors. These are our newest, and they are targeted at this business music application. I've got 2 models in the family. There's the MPM 40 and the MPM 80. The only difference between them is the number of inputs and outputs. So the MPM 40 has 4 mic line, 4 line level inputs, and 4 output zones. you can use all of those inputs at the same time. So it's an 8x4 processor. The MPM 80 is a total of 16 inputs. Half of them are mic line and the other half are line level inputs. And then I've got 8 outputs for zoning. In regards to setup and control, I do have another dedicated output for music on hold. And so you don't, if your customer is a retail store or restaurant and they want to have music on hold, you can have this output. It's already transformer balanced, already designed to connect to the PBX, the phone system. And so you just use this output. You don't need to take one of your regular zoned outputs. I've got 2 general purpose inputs, and these can be used for connecting to the fire alarm, or to, I could have a switch where I can do some room combining or something like that. So this gives me the ability to recall presets. As far as, standard control Ethernet, and that's how I'm going to be controlling the system today. I've got my, just my computer connected to the MPM in my home office here. These 2 other ports, these are for our dedicated wall controllers that we call MFCs, or multifunction controllers. These allow me to drive, each port allows me to drive up to 4 wall controllers. So I have a total of 8 wall controllers that I can use with this system. Control is really important. In fact, when you're talking with the end customer, control is the system. And so we've created 2 different mechanisms for control. Here's our wall controllers. That's just the European style, the square style. In the US, obviously, we'd have the Decora panel. And then we've also got a dedicated application that the end customer can use to control the system from their phone or from a tablet. So 2 different ways of controlling the system. To set the system up and program it, we've got a different application. This is called MP Install. And so let me go back. This is MP Manage for the end user, MP Install for the integrator. And this can be run from a tablet or from your PC. And so I'm actually going to jump into that right now. Here we go. Share that screen. So at this point, everybody should be able to see my my screen for the MP Install. And this is a unit that I have here in my home office. This is an MPM 40, so I've got 4 mic line inputs, 4 sets of RCAs for line level inputs, so here's from my, I don't have it connected up right now. In fact, I'm going to hit play. Should be able to hit play on that CD player, and then once it wakes up, yeah, so I just hit play on the CD player. Now I've got signal there, and then I've also got a Bluetooth connection that I can make live. But so these are inputs that I have. Also under inputs, I've got this USB player, and so I can actually go in and play audio from a USB stick. So it's just a handy way to demonstrate or to test the system. I've got this other input. So those are all my inputs. Now I should have started by saying all my navigation's down the right hand side. It's very, very simple. So my inputs, and you saw again mic line, RCA, and here's my USB player. One of the interesting things about MP Manage, or if I'm using my smartphone, is I actually have the ability to page directly from my phone. And if I was connected from my phone via Wi-Fi, I could make a page, and that input would come in through this Wi-Fi paging input. So another possibility that I have there from MP Manage. On the output side, so here's my outputs in my office here. And so if I go to my sources, right now I've selected the PC, but if I select my CD player, and you can hear a little bit of Michael Jackson there in the background. So I'm going to pull that down, or actually maybe just go back to this. So here's my sources, and again, I'm just going through inputs, outputs, and then there's the various DSP elements within those systems. Same thing on the input side, actually. I've got parametric EQ, dynamics, noise gate. I've got a number of tools that are available to me on those inputs. Same kind of thing on the outputs. I have different things here, so we'll get into that just a little bit more. I do have a mixer. This is a full-blown mixer because the MPM was developed using our TouchMix DSP platform. This mixer gives me the ability to bring up and mix all of these inputs. So here's my 4 mic line. Recognize that my mic line inputs have auto mixing capability. So I could actually have like a hotel ballroom with a bunch of microphones. And if I turn the auto mixer on, then it uses the noise gate to sense when there's signal. And it's a pretty simple auto mixer. It means that if one person's talking, he gets all the gain. If 2 people talk, they share the gain. And so just a pretty easy way to manage those multiple microphones. I could also, bring up this is from my CD player right here. You can see CD player. And now that signal level is being sent to my mixer output. So again, just a number of tools that I have available to me. One of the most useful things I have is a setup wizard that takes me through the configuration process. If I had a configuration, I could click on load configuration and I could see, oh, I'm gonna load this configuration. I hit recall, and I did store 27 2 weeks ago, and now I'm doing store 38 this week. I just go and hit recall. It gives me a nice starting place. But if I don't have a configuration, I can just start and just go through my steps. You do not need to use these steps, but it is a nice way to go through the setup process. So here I can go ahead. Yes.
Just to highlight one thing on the load configuration there is also a area to select loading from USB.
Oh yeah.
And that is another great way, one, just to keep a backup, right? After you deploy a job, it lives on that NPM with the customer, but you can always keep a USB just to reset everything to default. And if you're going from store 27 to store 42, a great way to send files ahead to the job site when that brand new NPM arrives, and very quickly, get yourself up and running.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Ross. Yeah, there's actually 3 different storage locations. I can save it. I can save the configuration file to the internal drive in the NPM device itself. I can save it to the external USB stick, or I can save it to my application. And so just 3 different locations that you can choose from there. Good point. But let's say I didn't have this configuration done and I want to start a new one from scratch. I would hit input configuration, and now it takes me to input 1. And maybe there's some sort of paging microphone or something, right? Paging mic. Here's all my input settings, so I can adjust my input to gain trim. I can turn fan and power on if I need to. Flip the polarity if I need to. I can link stereo channels together. Another nice thing that we do have is we do have a delay on the input. Now, typically this would be used with video delay, and many of you, I'm sure, have used video matrices. And when you go through a video matrix, oftentimes your video signal is delayed, but the audio is not. And so this allows me to delay my audio so it will match the video. Generally it's between a frame or 2, which is usually about 30 to, a frame is usually 33 milliseconds or thereabout. 2 frames is going to be, 66 at 30 frames a second. So anyway, gives me the ability to delay my audio to match my video. This is input 1. I can click next. Now I'm at input 2. Do all these same settings. Next, input 3, input 4, and so forth. Great. I've done all my input configuration. Outstanding. Output configuration. Here's the same kind of thing. I can name this output. So this would be, sales, floor. And the same type of tools, polarity. Now, in my system here, I'm linked. I'm going to unlink those. And one of the really cool things, I've got delay, of course. one of the really cool things that I've got here is I have a minimum and a maximum output level. And so what that allows me to do, this is the master level for this zone, for the sales floor. And you can see it goes from 100% there, 0% there. But this 0 to 100% is of this level. And so if I want to, let me go back and turn my signal back on. Actually, let me turn my signal back on real quick here and select my sources. Go back to my CD player. Yeah, okay. Turn that down a little bit. Go back to my setup page. Sorry. So I have the ability to adjust the minimum level. So even when it's down at 0 and the end customer from the wall controller or from the smartphone application pulls it all the way down to 0, I can still have a little bit of signal there. So you don't get the call saying, there's no sound in the system. Well, it's because you've turned it down all the way. So yeah, I can set my minimum and I can set my maximum. So it gives me the ability to adjust this level that the end user has control over. And I can go, oh, so this was a sales floor. Maybe the next zone is my, this was the dressing rooms. Great. So dressing rooms. And I would probably just fix the level in there. So I'm not worried about my minimum and my maximum for that. Go to my next zone there. And in this case, you know, this could be, this is the offices. And I might give them a wall control there. And so, you know, I might want to adjust that. And the final zone was the bathroom.
And we should really say that, you know, there's a lot of traditional legacy audio mixers, zone mixers, where then you would have to layer on a control system on top to do some of these, you know, fairly straightforward customer requests, which is, I don't want to give the bartender the ability to crank the system to 11 or accidentally turn it all the way off. That was typically the responsibility of the control system. Now we're trying to merge those two worlds.
Absolutely.
And give you one piece of hardware that is addressing the vast majority of most customer requests.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So, so I have, you know, so we're going through the setup process and I'm really kind of shortcutting it here. You know, there's a lot that we can do here. One thing I do want to do is I want to select my speakers. So I'll hop into this and well, this is my sales floor zone. And so, of course, we have the full list of QSC loudspeakers. So this is the 6-inch pendant, and I select that and hit recall. And so it's loaded that speaker tuning for that particular output. It's easy as that. Now, as much as you probably should just always use QSC loudspeakers, we recognize that there are times when you can't. So you have the ability to create a user library. I can go into my filters and create whatever filters I need. So for that JB, no, if it's JBL, I'm going to pull this down actually. For that Sonance, for that whatever loudspeaker I'm using, I can adjust these settings. And oops, I should have pulled that. You know, I can adjust the frequency. I can adjust the width of that filter. Whatever I need to do to make the speaker sound great. Once I've got that and I'm happy with that, I can go and save that as a new preset. And so, you know, again, you can create your own list of presets because I'm always using those Sonance or I'm always using those CAFs or whatever. Or as you should, I'm always using those QSC loudspeakers. So again, zone 1, zone 2, and I can go through the whole setup process.
And
now
we're really blazing through.
We are blazing through it, guys. I don't want to shortcut it, but there's a lot to cover still.
And should anybody like to continue learning on your own, there is a dedicated curriculum on training.qsc.com.
Yes.
For the MPM, the Zone Mixer series.
It's 5 YouTube videos.
Yeah, yeah, plenty of YouTube, plenty of archived webinars. So this is really a dash overview just to communicate some basic system functionality.
Right, absolutely. You know, I see we've got 10 minutes left, so I really want to try and finish this up. One other thing to remember is that when we started doing this system, we said, well, we're going to have some wall controllers. I do want to show how that's done because I actually think it's pretty trick. You just click on the wall controllers menu, and here, okay, this would be the sales floor, right? So this is sales, and what zone is it going to connect to? Well, it's controlling the sales floor, or it's controlling the dressing rooms. I do have a multi-zone mode. So for the one that's in the office, in fact, maybe let's set this one up for the office. So for the wall controller that's in the office, I could actually have it control all 4 zones. Now, the nice thing about setting these wall controllers up is once I've got them set the way I like, all I need to do is hit this green pair button and my wall controller lights up. So let me go back to sales because I've got a wall controller here on my desk. I hit this pair button. It says press any button on the wall controller. The wall controller just lit up. You can't see it, I apologize, but it says press a button to pair this device, and it gives me a little ASCII or a little hexadecimal code. So I push any button on that wall controller, and now it says it's paired this device with that virtual controller sales. So now I know that this is controlling that, that sales floor. And in fact, if I go back to my sales floor sources, I push my volume on the wall controller, and you know, you can see how I'm adjusting that volume. I push my center button and I can select a different source. So it's really, really simple, and it just gives you great control for those end customers. If I was to set up so I set up my wall controllers. If I wanted to do the smartphones are similar, you just got more stuff. So again, instead of 8 different wall controllers, I've got 8 different access levels, and I can give that assistant manager control over whatever zones they need, as well as other functions. So can this assistant manager recall scenes? You know, can they use the USB player or make Wi-Fi pages? And once I hit save, it saved that profile setting. And so now when the manager gives that assistant manager access, now they get access to those zones and these settings. We're cruising through this stuff, guys, and I apologize, but it is a lot of material to cover. I'm going to hop back into my presentation, which I think is this. Yes. So we've just gone through and we programmed the processor. At this point, we've set up our inputs, we've set up our content, we've set up our output zones and speakers. And now we're going to go and, you know, obviously we're actually doing the installation at this point. Oh man, you know, there's an obstruction above the ceiling in the dressing rooms and the bathroom. Now, one thing I wanted to point out is we do have, and I think I mentioned it earlier, we do have low profile or shallow can speakers. And so one of the nice things with our shallow can is we maintain the volume. So I can go to this, so I can go from a standard back can 6-inch speaker. My 4-inch low profile speaker is the exact same cutout. And so, and because they're in the same family, they're going to sound almost exactly the same, just slightly less low frequency content because it's the 4-inch instead of the 6. And so it gives me the ability to make those adjustments. And so I selected a different speaker. I have to go back into my design file and select a different speaker tuning. But aside from that, everything's there. Everything's as it needs to be. I've already showed setting up wall controllers, and here we've got a wall controller in the office, wall controller in the sales floor by the cash and wrap. So this whole setup process is coming together. Now, a couple things I didn't show you in the software. there is a system tuning function. So I can actually go in, there's an RTA, built-in RTA, and I can monitor every single input or output. I also have the ability to select different sources, and one of those sources is just pink noise. Now, it's not great to listen to, but it can be a helpful testing tool. And so you make sure you're getting noise out of all the speakers, and then go back to your to the RTA, and now I can go, like I said, go to each one of those zones, listen to those zones, make sure I'm getting the signal that I expect. So we've cruised through just a ton of information. I do want to, you know, I've left, we've got like 3 or 4 minutes left, but we've pretty much done, you know, as much as possible, as much as can be shown in an hour. The, you know, soup to nuts, start to finish, setup and design and integration of a retail system. If there are any questions, I would be happy to entertain those. You know, I don't necessarily see, let's see, where would I see those?
And Dale, would you say, just to summarize, the key things we need to know, you know, to arrive at a system design really is, what is that customer volume expectation?
Yes.
That tells us a lot. How many different zones, meaning how many different areas should be treated differently?
Right.
Because that's going to directly relate to number of amp channels. And then how many input sources do we have? And how do they want to control the system? Really, that tells us, you know, almost everything we need to know to get to an initial bill of materials. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Ross. Thanks. Yeah. So, you know, knowing what are the content sources, what do they want to play, which could include after hours music, right? So maybe it's a restaurant or a retail store or whatever, and after hours they want to be able to play their own you know, content. Okay, I'm going to set up another input for my phone, or I've got a Bluetooth connection so that they can Bluetooth into that system. And now after hours, or I could even have a preset. So after hours, I recall that preset, and now it loads the you know, selects the right source. It could also change the volume level so that they can play it louder, but not too loud. So all of those elements can be part of that after hours preset. Yeah, all of those different things, all of those you know, sources, volume and ambient noise expectations, that's really important for laying out the loudspeakers and arriving at the bill of materials. And then, you know, the wall controllers, providing the end user control is also key and for making sure that customer is happy.
Right, ceiling height, ceiling type.
Yes.
Probably the other one that I know I forget to ask sometimes, like, what is that ceiling made out of? The other most common question we get is does QSC offer any streaming music streaming service ourselves, which we
do not. No, we don't. We do have, we've got a cool Bluetooth product that's made by a Terratech. Terratech was purchased by QSC about a year ago. And that Bluetooth receiver is an excellent device. It is a pro level receiver, which means the nicest thing about it is it doesn't automatically reconnect. Once it disconnects from a device, it stays disconnected until you walk up to the button, push the button to pair, and then it's paired. And so that, you know, but QSC does not offer a streaming service. We work with a number of people who do, but we recognize that some of you sell content and we don't want to compete. So yeah, I really appreciate your time and attention. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the Q&A or Q&A, and or you know, just send them to Gary, and I'll make sure that we answer those. Thanks for your time, guys.
Guys, that was great. It is very, very detailed, but we did illustrate, you know, definitely some of the questions that not only the end user, but what the requirements are when you walk into that job. I loved how Ross, you pointed out, you know, what if the customer wants to take away a speaker? And I hope that illustration, when you grab that speaker out of that software, it shows a lack of coverage, you know, just to kind of back it up. Because yeah, they're going to want one less speaker. They're going to try to nickel and dime and all of that. So I love that software, and I hope it does do that. And I hope that we see success stories from utilizing that software and proving your point, more or less, that this coverage is going to be optimum for, you know, for this space. You know, when you were talking about the shorter cans, you know, you ran into a problem, so you had to do the shorter can. You integrated a shorter can speaker in there, and then you go back and pick that speaker, and it already adjusts that lack of bass, like you said it might have. You know what I mean? You don't go back in and kind of bump up that lower dB, do you? You picked it and it compensated, because that was sitting right amongst other larger can speakers.
Right. So let me. So if I was doing this in my setup wizard, I'd go to speakers. Oh, in the bathroom and the other zone, I would, you know. So it was in the dressing rooms, right? And normally this would be the ADC 6T. So I would have loaded this tuning. Okay, great. Well, if I have that tuning, but now I need to use the shallow can, the ADC 4T low profile, I would just select this, recall that, it loads the speaker tuning. I don't need to make any bass adjustments on that. The nice thing about the speaker tunings is it maximizes the performance of those loudspeakers.
Awesome. Now, Gary, the one thing you said that I just want to make clear, because we don't want to bait and switch anybody. This preset you're assigning here corresponds to an output channel from the mixer, which corresponds to an amplifier channel.
That's correct.
So if you have one amp channel running a 70-volt line to 6 loudspeakers, and you flip one of the 6 loudspeakers from a 6 to a 4.
Oh, yeah.
We can't address that problem because we are on a single 70-volt line. This particular example was saying I've got one loudspeaker in a dressing room or a
small zone, yep.
Which I can define that amp channel that single loudspeaker is attached to. I can treat that with a different preset. So if you are doing just one in a row of 6 loudspeakers, you still only apply one voicing to that entire run.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, Ross. And now the nice thing is, because these speakers are so similar, there would not be much of a difference at all between these speaker tunings. You know, it would be in that scenario, you probably wouldn't even notice the difference. But your point is valid.
You've got the hole cut, you know.
Yeah, the hole's already cut.
There's an HVAC duct. You're making the best of a tough situation. So when needed, you got to just go with that low profile, because you can't cut another hole. You know, that's where you're at.
Right. That was a good question.
Good stuff, guys. I did grab that link, the ease address link. That'll be on today's email as well. Anything else, guys? Did you grab anything else that I might need to include today, Dale?
You know what? Maybe what we should do is send you the link for ease address at the QSC website, and then also for the MP install software. So we can send you those links. I'll send those to you, Gary.
Great.
But yeah, again, thanks for your time and attention. You know, we definitely had 10 pounds of stuff into a 5-pound bag, but it was, you know, I think we covered the majority of it. So thanks again.
Thanks, guys. You got the best here. All right, guys, listen, going into 4th of July week next week, have a great one. Be safe out there. We are all dedicated to improving our commercial AV business. These guys are pros. We're here for you. Things are getting busier, so we really appreciate your time today. Ross, thank you, buddy. I'll see you soon. Dale, thank you. Be safe out there. Having a great holiday weekend next week. Let's develop course number 3.
Sounds good.
Later July or August. All right, guys?
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Volleytone, Snap AV, MRI, and AllNet, and Custom Plus. We thank you guys so much. See you guys at 4 o'clock today with my email.
Thanks.
See everybody.
Bye.